So the Cosmere is his extended universe, which is kind of what I want to talk about.
Is it called Big One in the Cosmos?
It's called the Cosmere, is what the extended universe
He's saying
is called.
it's a big one.
It's a big book
in the universe,
in the universe.
or the Cosmere.
Because it's had the most.
Big One in the Cosmos.
It's had the most crossover
Yeah.
in any other books.
May
so
I
far.
say this? Joshua doesn't listen to you. When you explain how fun you're having with these extracurricular stories.
No, I do.
Joshua doesn't listen.
do.
He just turns his brain off.
Sometimes I think I should listen to these.
So Sanderson has been releasing books in the Cosmere for way back in 2008. And he said recently at the Dragonsteel Con that high fantasy and books like that were always kind of written, but people didn't really want the connectivity of a bunch of different stuff. But with the birth of the internet and Marvel doing what Marvel does, people like it.
Yes.
People enjoy seeing it's like, oh, this book has the same character as this book, and so people were seeing these hints and really enjoying them. The same way we did in Marvel in the early days, right? And that was when he realized that a connected universe could work. And so he decided to make every book that he writes in this universe connected. And so the magic systems all kind of overlap. Characters go from one place to another. Sometimes you'll see different characters in different places, hopefully ultimately culminating into something big. Right?
Okay.
He's written a lot of books in this Cosmere.
Roughly how many? Roughly, guess.
37.
Whoa.
37 books?
In the Cosmere. He's written a bunch outside as well. Since 2008.
That's so many
That's
books.
why I ask follow-up questions.
So,
because
like,
you get a better grasp.
So the big ones would be like Warbreaker, Elantris, the Mistborn Series 1, Mistborn Series 2, Wax and Wane. Wax and Wane is the one I just finished, that series, and that had like 5 books. And the Stormlight Archive, which is the big series.
Which is what you've been consuming for a minute.
I've been listening to Stormlight Archive for a long while, and those are big girthy books too. So
the Girth Boys.
I bring all this up because he has built a massive universe, and he's just recently brought in a friend and fellow writer, Dan Wells, to write some of the books in this universe. And he's got a company, and he's doing a lot of stuff.
He's putting a lot of elbow grease into world building.
Yeah. So my question is, do you guys think that this kind of stuff is sustainable?
Sustainable. So are you talking about in contrast to like what we see from other people?
What we see with DC, what we've seen with Marvel, these connected universes, what we've seen in the comics as well, can it get too out of hand? Will it become a burden? Is the quality going to stay the same?
Okay, first off, I have a hard belief that it doesn't matter how in-depth you get, world building is never going to become too much.
Yeah.
It only is reliant on how much creative elbow grease the artists are putting into this world building. I do happen to believe if it comes from the mind of too many people, then it becomes corrupt. Then it starts to, in some ways, fall in on itself. You know, you have too many people's passionate ideals about these worlds being interjected and made canon, and that's incorrect. You shouldn't do it that way. That's why Tolkien created one of the most wonderful world building stories of all time. Sanderson and Martin, they're building currently some of the greatest modern day worlds of all time. It's working really well for these individuals because it's from his noggin.
His brain.
It's not from all of these different perspectives that we see from that turn into shows like Marvel, DC, and Star Wars, you know?
But also, he's working on a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
He's doing a whole bunch of... Do you think there can be like a Decay with that? A Half-Life?
Okay, I have a theory, and I feel like we've talked about it on this podcast before. there's a lot of people that they write sub-stories, but they have their story.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of writers have this one story that they have in the back of their mind, in the front of their mind. Maybe they're writing about it. Maybe they're coming out with stuff, but it's their story.
So if they cultivate it, they work on it, they build it, then they can actually come out with a product and it's accepted and found.
Yeah, but
and that's what they'll be.
There's only kind of one world, one story that everybody has that kind of works for them.
Yeah.
Maybe that is their story. I mean, like J.R.R. Tolkien, Middle Earth. You know, Sanderson. What is that?
So his big one that he's writing is the Stormlight Archive, which takes place on the planet of Roshar. The thing is, it's not the only story that has been super successful for him.
Yeah.
May I point out something?
But I think what you're saying does apply to him in the Cosmere. The Cosmere in these books, which take place on different planets with different characters, with different magic systems, that's his story.
Okay.
Is this overarching
Yes.
Cosmere.
It does work then. Then yes.
But what I've learned from Brandon that I think contradicts somewhat your thought is that not everybody has only one big idea, right?
No, they have other ideas, but sometimes they're not their story. I feel like there's always been one story with a lot of writers that just kind of works, and it's their story.
Let me rephrase it. I think what I learned from him is that you can have one idea, but that it can be so massive.
It's many.
It can be so huge, right, from one person that it's many, many, many different stories. But my thought was like what we've seen from DC has been a cluster. You know, just so many, like, failure after failure. They haven't really gotten their universe together, even still. And then Marvel, we're seeing creative decay.
Okay,
with this fourth wave,
as many people coming in and out.
Maybe we add our own voices to the proud and the many, the MCU.
The MCU.
Because that's apparently a movement right now that's becoming controversial. If you say MCU, then you're anti-Marvel at this moment.
I want to combat this, and then we can get back to the MCU. Stan Lee's universe is the Marvel universe, and that's his story. Yes, it is just a bunch of superheroes, but it's the Marvel universe and how it kind of ties together.
Yeah.
That is his universe.
Yeah.
It can be multiple stories, but yet it's one universe, and it can be multiple things, but it ultimately kind of ties together.
I agree with you. I think some writers have one big thing that they do, and it can be...
Well, it's the story that defines their career.
It's the story that defines their career. But
that wasn't their career. It was just the definition of it.
I would say something like, what's a big one?
Well, Martin did sci-fi almost his entire career, and now in his 60s and 70s, he's becoming known for this fantasy that happens in Westeros and Essos.
Yeah. But also Westeros is so big. It's his Cosmere is Westeros.
Yeah. But most of Martin's career was all sci-fi.
But growing up, I haven't read them in years now, but like a writer that we loved was the Door Within trilogy,
Wayne
Thomas Batson, and he had a lot of good stories. He had The Dream. I don't even know what it's called at this
Isle of Swords.
Yes, Isle of Swords, The Dream books about people were in dreams and the story and all that stuff. They were good books, but his books are The Door Within.
Yeah, that's the
Door Within stories are his books.
It's kind of like C.S. Lewis. and
Yes,
Narnia.
it's Narnia.
Yeah.
He
Think about
has
this.
books.
C.S. Lewis has written so many
written-
successful books.
But I agree with the theory is that a
It's
writer
the
has
one
they have one big
thing.
thing that is defines their career.
Yeah. But
The
C.S. Lewis, there's so much to the Chronicles of Narnia. There's how many books they have in the
Like
Chronicles of Narnia?
what is it, 9?
From
8?
The Magician's Nephew to all the way to the Last Battle. There's
Honestly,
a lot to do with it.
9 little books is kind of weak. Netflix be putting out them
Isn't that-
8.
I don't care about Netflix.
It's
Netflix
crazy.
aren't writers.
It's crazy how,
They
the
are.
Narnia books they're very small,
yeah.
and for 9 books, right, to be when you say C.S. Lewis, everybody
Yeah.
thinks Narnia.
Yes.
It's a good legacy, right? But I think what Brandon is building is so big. I just have a little bit of a worry that as time goes on, I don't know how it's going to, maintain itself.
This is what I think. If he doesn't outsource his fundamental ideas for the direction of the story to too many people,
Yeah.
and he keeps it primarily coming from his own brain, then the purpose, the direction, even if not accepted well by some fans, will always be the correct direction. The problem is because when it comes down to it, it's his story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's his story.
The problem is when you get someone who really has a story, or a group of people who really, think about Dave Filoni. They're screwing up Star Wars, and they're doing some cool things with Star Wars right now. Most of the things that's good, Dave Filoni has his fingers at least placed inside of. You know what I mean? But he's not the one directing the Disney branch for Star Wars. Would you stop?
He just said fingers placed on side. Why'd you have to say that?
Because it's what I said. But that's just an example of what I'm saying. If he directs his story, it will be the correct story.
Yeah,
It won't decay in the way you're thinking, the way you're describing with Marvel and DC and all of these big ideas.
I have faith in Dan. Dan Wells is a great writer. I've
Yeah.
read his serial killer series, which was incredible. It was enjoyable to read. And so I have faith in him. I'm curious. This project is so big,
Yeah.
right? I finished the last book and I kind of realized how big the project was. How many different characters, how many different worlds.
Yeah.
I'm just, the pattern that we've seen, because even Marvel Comics and DC Comics have gotten so big that they've devolved,
Yeah.
right? I don't want to see that in this,
Yeah.
I think a way to avoid that could be focus on something that still leans into your desire for the storytelling of the story, but doesn't require writing a novel and writing a bunch of lore and canon and arc, and characters.
Yeah.
Save some of your strongest moments for your beloved characters and lean into something like, what is the language, like Tolkien did. Write a crap ton about the language. Write a crap ton about the history of where it came from in historical, documented fashion. Not with characters, not with emotional moments. Just write it out like, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. Right? Like, take a wall at your home and write out a big spreadsheet of the timeline and how things connect. And then dig into that side of things and have fun with that, so you don't corrupt your story with boredom because you feel like you have to churn out another novel, you know? Because that could keep you occupied for like a freaking year if you must,